Hey guys, it's Andy. Today I'm going to be talking about, as you can see in the title, what I think about some of the news we've received about Pokemon Sword and Shield. I know I'm a bit late. A bunch of the news that I'm going to talk about in this, it's no longer news. It was revealed months ago. But I'm glad I waited to talk about this because, well, for starters, back when it was news, I had no ambition to make videos. I know I keep saying that, so you guys are probably tired of hearing it, so I'm not gonna say it anymore. But that's why that's part of the reason why I didn't make a video about my feelings about this, because I had pretty strong feelings about this, but I just didn't have enough ambition to put it into video. But like I said, I'm glad I waited instead of just rushing it out, even though I wasn't mentally willing to do so at that time, because in that time since then I've learned a lot, and my opinion is still relatively similar to what it was before, but now I feel I'm much more much better informed than I was originally. But I still want to talk about my feelings about this whole situation. So let's go back to when they announced like 3 games: Pokemon Home, Pokemon whatever that new one is on the mobile. That I think that came out or something. Like, some people have early access. I've seen screenshots on Twitter recently, whatever that one is. And then I think they teased another one also. Either way, they revealed like 3 titles all at once back like the end of May, I want to say. And I was really only excited for Pokemon Home because it just seemed like everything good about Pokemon Bank. Because you transfer your Pokemon to there, and from there you could transfer them to Sword and Shield. So it just seemed like it seemed like a reasonable improvement to Pokemon Bank, and that's what I liked about it. I didn't like how, like even then though, I had this ever-present dread in the back of my mind that, like, okay, Pokemon Bank is going to shut down eventually, so we won't be able to transfer Pokemon anymore. Like, eventually it'll stop because Pokemon Bank is a finite service. Like, it will run out when they stop providing that service, so eventually we won't be able to transfer our old Pokemon up to our newer games anymore. And I was kind of sad about that. Well, because, like, I don't know, maybe there would be another way. So I was a bit sad, but I was hopeful. I liked the idea of Pokemon Home enough that I didn't let that bother me as much, because the idea of home and being able to transfer to Sword and Shield was just so excellent. Then out of the clear blue, I think they revealed this during E3 or something, just unbelievably hilarious and impeccable timing. They admit that you can't transfer every Pokemon into Sword and Shield. They aren't going to be in the game data. And yeah, we'll just address the elephant in the room now. This is my biggest gripe with this bit of news. Like, I really don't care about the graphics. I know that's upsetting people a lot, like the graphics and animation. Like, I know that's also a big deal in the Pokemon community at the moment. I know a lot of people are upset with that. I personally am not. I do not care about graphics. Obviously they'd be cool to have, but I'm perfectly content with what I've seen. Like, yes, even the Ocarina of Time tree, even though that is hilarious. But yeah, the graphics thing has no effect on me. My primary and I believe only complaint is that they won't have the data for some Pokemon, in Sword and Shield. And initially it upset me because, it's just not something I expected would ever happen. It was such a big deal from Gen 2 to Gen 3 not being able to transfer your Pokemon over, and it seemed like Game Freak learned that lesson that people like to transfer. So, I thought it seemed to me like they were trying to keep, that pattern going. And that's the gist I got when they announced Pokemon Home. Like, it's still baffling to me that they even make Pokemon Home just to have an undetermined amount of Pokemon not even be able to be transferred to Sword and like, how can you mess that? Like, I know why they did what they did now. Like I said, I'm more informed about why they're doing this, but it's still just so ironic. Like, now Pokemon Home doesn't even seem, I was gonna say worth it, but that I'll save that for what I'm gonna say. For right now, I just want to explain to those of you who may not know, who are watching me for whatever reason. If you're watching me for whatever reason, thank you. I'm Elogee, by the way, also known as Andy. I do some wild things. If you're watching this, what could the comment question of the day be? If you could guarantee one Pokemon would be coming back into the Galar Dex, what would it be? And if you could force one Pokemon to be removed from the Galar Dex, what would it be? I know this is an awkward structure. Get used to it if you're watching my channel. But anyway, like, initially we were told that they cut out a lot of Pokemon specifically because they needed to devote too much time, and that they would rather work on making the game look appealing, like have good animations and graphics. And that's why I believe a lot of people are so upset about the animation and graphics, because that was the scapegoat that we were given as to why Pokemon were being removed. But that, I don't know if that is actually Game Freak's reasoning, because if it is, that's pretty laughable considering the state of the animation and graphics. But that's, like I said, that doesn't bother me, so I'm not gonna get too much into that. The true reasoning I've found out that Pokemon is not including Pokemon in the game data anymore is because, like, we'll be at, I believe, close to 1,000 Pokemon, and that is a lot. And like, if they don't stop now, like, people will just be more outraged the longer it goes on that they don't include every Pokemon. Like, if they did include every Pokemon in this game, come next generation, Gen 9, there would be like 1,200 Pokemon, let's say, and they'd have to include that. Gen 10, it'd be nearing 1,500. I know I'm adding a lot of Pokemon, but you get what I'm saying, like, each gen they'd have to add more and more. And like, I understand that might not exactly be feasible anymore. Like, I get that. I don't know enough about, game development or anything to comment on that further, but I don't know, to me it seems like if you have however many there currently are, like 700 or so, then, like, as technology improves, I don't think it would be an issue to continually increase, but like I said, I don't know enough about game development, so I'm not gonna say anything ignorant that might not make sense. But I do understand that is a valid point. I don't think it's a very strong point, but that's just my limited knowledge of game development. But however, the main reason that they're doing this is because Pokemon is such a huge industry. It isn't as much focused on the games anymore. I've heard a large profit for them is, well, Pokemon Go now, but primarily the merchandise and trading cards, which they've been developing trading cards and, plush and merchandise, etc., for the Generation 8 Pokemon already, as well as anime, the Pokemon anime. So I don't know who was in charge of that, but they need to get that out in order to, maintain profits for whoever's working on them. Obviously, once I found that out, I felt a little bad about my initial reaction, but at the same time, I'm still upset at whoever decided that Pokemon needed to be a yearly released franchise. Like, back in the day, like, in between Pokemon Fire Red and Pokemon Diamond, that was like 2 or 3 years. It was so long, in fact, I didn't think there would even be another Pokemon game. So, like, I think that amount of time in between a generation is fine. Like, I know a lot of people get impatient and want, new gens every year or so, but I find yearly releases to be incredibly unnecessary. I think it would be much better if it was 2 or 3 years, for a new game. Yeah, that is ultimately my biggest gripe. The decision that Pokemon needs to be released yearly and that they need to develop the games so that they can develop the cards, the anime, etc. Someone made a good point that the anime back in Generation 3, when there was that big gap between Generation 3 and 4, they made like a whole filler arc of Pokemon anime, the Battle Frontier. So a completely valid point, they could just do that again, but they're not, because Game Freak. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm not happy about this decision, but like I get it. And the thing is, like, I actually don't mind as a casual player of Pokemon, specifically and solely because of Pokemon Home. I think being able to at least have your Pokemon and being able to transfer them to something is acceptable enough. Like, it is a shame that the first console game, big deal, having, a new Pokemon game like this, on the big screen for the first time. I think it's incredibly ironic that this is the first time that you can't use all the Pokemon, but as a casual Pokemon player, it won't bother me that I can't use my Swampert from Pokemon Ruby that I've transferred all the way up to, my current Pokemon bank file, in that game anymore. It doesn't bother me that I won't be able to use it in the game, like, as long as I can still have it, in Pokemon Home. Like, as long as it's still there, I'm content with it. Ideally, I would like to transfer it, just for the novelty of, seeing it in the game, I guess, but I'm content as long as it's available in Home. Now that's my stance as a casual player. This upsets me the most as a competitive player, though. Mostly, there was also talk like Game Freak took out a lot of these Pokemon because of balancing issues, which I haven't cared about Game Freak's attempts to balance the game. I know a lot of people haven't, mostly because I play by Smogon rules. I think they do a phenomenal job balancing, a single player metagame. So that I follow Smogon, so I don't care about Game Freak's attempts to implement, quote unquote balance into their competitive aspects. Like, I don't play VGC or anything like that, so I just wanted to throw that out there. It didn't really affect me either way, but as a competitive player, it does upset me that, because it just seems like it'll be a worse metagame because you have so much less options than you originally did. Like, the thought that, like, you might not be able to use, I don't even know who's confirmed and who isn't. Let me just look to this poster right next to me. Raikou. I see they might not have the Gen 2 legendaries, so, like, Raikou. If you would have told me that, like, there's a metagame where you can't use Raikou, like, I would have been like, what? Why? But the fact that that's actually real, and it's just something we have to deal with, it's I don't know, I don't like it. Landorus is going to be gone too. I know there's a lot of jokes about that, because kind of runs every metagame, but probably won't anymore because they're probably not going to include a lot of the old trio Pokemon. So, like, in essence, it'll be a new metagame, but because there's so few Pokemon, I feel like it'll stagnate way faster than it would have if it included all 1,000 Pokemon, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be so comparatively few options now, and I just don't like that. I have the most fun competitively using things that have niche viability, you know? And I think a lot of people agree. I think that's why draft format is as popular as it is. Speaking of which, draft format is probably gonna die. Unless Showdown, well, they mentioned Showdown would keep a metagame where, you know, all Pokemon are available, of course, so you could just do that. I just think it's astonishing that the main OU tier on the Showdown ladder won't have every Pokemon available, like, and the unofficial ladder will. Like, that's astonishing to me. I'm still kind of holding out hope that they might patch in the Pokemon, you know, as time goes on. They said they won't, but after the comments fans have made, I'm hoping that they'll get through to Game Freak and they'll see that, you know, people really do want to use Pokemon. And hopefully, if they're given the time, they'll be able to do that. And hopefully they will do that. They probably won't, but I'm still holding out hope. Still holding out hope for them to include... Still holding out hope for them to include Mega Evolutions back into the game as well. I've heard countless sources say they aren't. And... you know, I'm sure you all know that disappoints me heavily because, you know, my Make a Mega series, which I've been meaning to get back to that. I made my next episode thumbnail back in February and made the slides for it and everything back then, but you guys know the drill back then. I couldn't be bothered to make videos, but yeah, I loved Megas as a mechanic. I hope they return, but pretty sure they aren't. Instead, we get Dynamax and Gigamax or whatever nonsense. I didn't like the way they kind of cast Megas aside Gen 7 for Z moves, and I really don't like how they're casting it aside permanently Gen 8 for Dynamax. So, yeah, I really don't know if I'll even have much ambition to play Gen 8 competitively anymore. Based on all this, I'll just have to wait and see. But as a casual player, I am pretty excited for the game, so I'll definitely be playing it. Probably gonna have a playthrough on YouTube like I did with Let's Go, so maybe look forward to that. But I believe that's all I have to say about this topic, so yeah, let me know what you guys think. Be sure to answer the comment question of the day. Be sure to like and subscribe for more dank videos like this. Like I said, I'll be bringing back Make a Mega, hopefully. Yeah, just stay tuned for some more good content. So I'm gonna get on out of here before I make this outro any longer than it needs to be. So thank you guys for watching and have a good day.